hello, plotters. Being a writer comes with a lot of setbacks. Am I right, Nandini?
Yeah.
There's nothing more inspiring than hearing from other writers who paved a path for themselves. Today, we are lucky enough to have Nandini Bapat. Try to say it. I know I butchered it, but I'll try better next time. She's going to be sharing her journey, which I'm really excited about. So more about Nandini. She's appeared as an actor on Abbot Elementary, Good Girls, Silicon Valley, and Mythic Quest. She's also got some really cool writing, like, what would you say, awards? She has been a semi-finalist for the We Screenplay and a quarterfinalist for the Big Break Final Draft Screenwriting Contest. And on her free time, most importantly, she likes to bake.
Yes. I made baklava like last week, and I'm still eating it.
I used to love baklava in Pittsburgh. For some reason, they had a lot of it. So delicious. So Nandini, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So can you take us back to where your passion for telling stories started?
Probably before I can remember. I've always loved stories. I think I started reading when I was 3. That's what my mom said.
Oh my gosh, amazing.
Yeah. And my mom was, so I'm Indian and my parents are Indian. So therefore, tiger parents, they put me into tutoring very young. Sorry, I'm like getting blown up by my texts. So they put me in like studies very young. So I started reading at 3. And I loved telling stories. And I think I remember seeing like this picture, like drawing that my mom had kept, where it's like I like literally told a story where it's like the girl dropped her ice cream. Like it was like a whole, like it was a thing. It was like a story in that one sentence. And my brother, he was like, the dog is green. Like that was how he did his pictures. And I would like, girl, like this picture of a blob was like, someone dropped their ice cream cone, and I was like, this is interesting. So I think it's always been ingrained in me. I think that's just been a thing for me. I loved reading as a kid, and before I went to sleep at night, in my head I was thinking of, what if the character did this? What would those characters have done in this situation? What what led from point A to point B for this character? And I didn't know it was telling stories. For me, it was just like me writing other books in my head, because I wanted to read more, but my mom was like, no, you have to go to sleep now. And that's always been a thing for me, is I always stay up because I want more stories. I can never get enough stories. And so when I was 16, I started kind of writing fan fiction and kind of dabbling in that. And I didn't really jump immediately on the idea of writing, because I'd always written stories in my head, but it had always been up here. It never had been out so other people could read it. And
wait, so this was when you did put it out there? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like when I was 16.
How was that?
They were really bad. I still have them. I keep them on my account as a reminder of where I was, where I started. They're really bad.
I'm so sad I don't have mine. Like, I wish I had my terrible writing. I don't know what it is.
I mean, there was some early stuff that I definitely did not keep, but I have definitely like a bunch of different stories that I put online. So therefore I saved them, because I've been through several hard drives since then, and things have gotten lost and disappeared.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but I actually still even have, like, I used to write down on notebooks sometimes with my Palm Bandy from the computer. And so I think I still have some of those. I've carried them with me through like 15 moves or something like that, like college and all of the moving back and forth and stuff. I think I still have some of that shit. But anyway, when I was 16, I started writing fan fiction because my friends were into it, and that kind of got me into it. And it was just, it was a thing we did. I was a nerd, whatever. And
nothing wrong with nerds.
No. And then I stumbled on a book series that I absolutely fell in love with. And we're going to talk more about that series in a bit.
We are going to talk about it in another episode, Nandini. Don't say too much.
I won't, but I fell in love with this book series. And I wanted to meet the author, because it was the first time I'd ever read a South Asian woman as a lead in anything, in a book, in a fantasy series that wasn't about being South Asian. She just happened to be a brown woman, but she did all of these amazing, cool fantasy things. She, had magic, and it was super fun. And so I really wanted to meet the author, except the author was almost like a recluse. She didn't do public appearances, except she was going to be a mentor at this young writers writing competition thing, or some symposium event or whatever on the East Coast. Now, I couldn't fly to the East Coast to go meet her. I was a kid. I didn't have money. And it was, of course, like right around the 2008 crash. So we were broke anyway. And, but I really wanted to meet her. And they had this symposium, and it was a completely paid thing. If you got in as a young writer, you would get to meet these creators and work with them, and they would mentor you and stuff like that. I had to meet her. So I wrote my first original short story to meet my favorite author, just so I could meet her. I didn't care about the thing. I just wrote a story, and I was like,
had
okay,
to do something to meet her.
Yeah. And I submitted it, and I didn't get in, but that gave me the writing bug for original stuff because I liked writing it. And I was like, I can do this. I wrote it for this, so I can write another one. And so I wrote another short story. And then, I started talking to my friends, and they were coming up with their own stories at the same time. So it just kind of worked that we started coming up with our own original stories. And, I plotted a few. I wrote down some novels. I had some excerpts, some bits and pieces here and there. And then but I never really finished anything. I was like, I did a couple short stories. I did a couple excerpts. I had planned entire universes in my head and written outlines on paper, and I'd never actually written a word of it. And then I went to college, and a friend introduced me to NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month. And so I was like, okay, maybe I'll try this. This might be a good way to get me to write my draft and just get it over with. And I think I did it for 3 years before I actually finished writing a novel, because it would always start and then school would get in the way, and I would get busy and I would get distracted and I'd FOMO and I'd just stop, right? How you do. But eventually I was able to finish writing a book, and wrote a first draft, and then it just kind of took off from there. You keep writing, you write stories, and
I want to circle this moment really fast, though, because it's really important. Like a lot of writers that I talk to, like coaching and everything, they don't finish things. So, and you had this problem too. I have this problem all the time. So what was different about this time? Can you say what's different about this time for the plotters out there?
I think National Novel Writing Month was fun because it was a community of people. And for my first time finishing something, it was helpful to go, like that particular year that I did finish, I went to a lot of National Novel Writing Month events. I went to meet people in my community who were writers. We would sit together and nobody would talk. There would be no internet. We just have to write. And it was a good way to kind of feel like there was a community behind me, and there were other people that were invested in me completing this. And I think
that's great.
Yeah, I think that helped. I wouldn't say
accountability, right? Accountability.
Yeah, accountability. I wouldn't say it was my key to long-term success. It's not the thing. Those are none of the tools that I use today to write and finish things. And I'm way more successful at finishing things today. But I think to get my first stories out of the way, to feel like, okay, I can actually finish something, that it is possible for me to write a long form story and finish it, that was very useful for that moment in my life. And it led me to the tools that I use today, which is a very complete outline. That's not, it's not like hemming me in, but it's giving me enough details so that I know what is happening at each stage of the story. So I'm undiagnosed, self-diagnosed ADHD, because I am pretty sure I have a lot of the hallmarkers for it, but as a young child, I came up with ways to compensate for it in order to be the person that my parents wanted me to be, because I was a people pleaser, still am. So I know in here, that it's like, yeah, okay. So basically I need achievable goals, right? I can't do something and I will procrastinate eternally if I don't have an achievable written goal there that I can check off a list. So what I do is I create an outline where like, because I do screenwriting mostly now, I put like the scene heading, like outside, internal, external, location, time of day. And then underneath that, I have a brief description, maybe a sentence, maybe two, very short paragraph of what is supposed to happen in that scene. And it might be, usually I write it as a paragraph because screenwriting software doesn't allow you to do bullet points very well. But basically, it's just very quick, like character A goes to this place. They find this object, which is going to be a clue for later on. And they get interrupted by character B, who then distracts them with this thing. And it's basically like, that will be like my quick description of the events that happen. Nothing about how the character feels, nothing about like whatever. It's just, these are the things that must happen in order for this overall narrative to work. So if I build out my outline like that from beginning to end, with all the little pieces, all the little clues, the Easter eggs plugged into this outline, I then go and put that in my spread, in my doc, like my OneDoc, my chapter, my Word document or script software, whatever. And I have all of my scene headings as the beginning of each section, basically. And I take all of that text that I had written, that was my like notes about what's going to happen, and I turn the text color to red, because it's urgent, right? I have to finish this. I have to do this part. And then what I do is I basically make a goal for myself. I say every day I have to complete one of these scenes. I have to turn one of those red sections into black. Okay. Oh. And it doesn't matter how long it is. If I want to do an establishing shot and write just one paragraph of that establishing shot, I can do that. That is an achievable goal. And if once I do that and I say, okay, every day I have to do one section of this and I have to turn it to black, then suddenly it makes it easier for me to complete. And then every day, usually for the first few days, it's really hard. Like I struggle. That's why I have those little establishing shot moments where I can write just one paragraph or half a page and then I'm done. And I jump around my script. I jump around to the different parts to pick whatever works for me that day, whatever I'm inspired to write that day. And then when I am finished with that, I can leave it and I walk away and I do my other stuff for the day.
Like I don't want it to vibrate everything, but applause to you. I just wanted to like highlight some of the really cool things you said. Bird by bird, like taking something big.
I had one more thing for that. And then it becomes a ball rolling down a hill. Like the first few days, it's really crunchy and it's really hard. But if you stick with doing at least one scene a day, by the time you get to like day 4 or something, day 5, you're doing 2 scenes a day because you're like, oh, I'm inspired. I can keep going.
Momentum.
And then by the time I'm like done with about a week or something, I'm writing 6 scenes a day. And then sometimes it's like, oh, I have a whole act left, but it's just one act left. I'm just going to do it. And I finish it all in one quick shot. And I can usually finish a script in 2 weeks.
It's all about starting. People talk about motivation all the time, but it's the action of doing that is the most important. What I loved is the bird by bird. I call it building a castle brick by brick, right? Yeah. You had the outline of the castle, right? And you're like, this is my outline. What I absolutely loved that you said, it's brilliant, is you said, I do an outline, but I leave, you didn't say this exactly, but this is what I was inferring. You leave space for you to be creative in the future with the writing, right?
Yes.
You know where it's supposed to go, but you haven't filled in enough where you're like, I don't want to do this, right? Yeah. And then what I loved is you're like, I can go out of order. That's another thing. Like people have writer's block. And one of the main reasons why people have writer's block is because they feel like once they get stuck, they have to stop until they think of something. But oftentimes, am I right on this? Like, because I do this too, where I'm like, oh, I'm more inspired by this moment where she's gonna die, right? And then that leads to wherever I was stuck before, like having an answer. Is that like how it is for you as well?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think what tends to happen is, and I found that because I've been writing for such a long time, and when I would write fan fiction, I would find the same kind of problem where I would start writing the story, and the beginning was really interesting. And then when I got to, about that first act break, that beginning where things start getting complicated with the character, suddenly I would get a slump. And I'd be like, why? Because I'm interested in the climax. I want to write the big, fight with the big villain, or like, that big confrontation, or there's this moment in the middle when, his friends confront him because he's keeping secrets, and it's like dark night of the soul moment. And it's like, I want to do all those really dramatic moments, and I don't want to do the filler bits. And the thing is that, I would be so stuck in, I have to follow the path, that I'd want to jump ahead, and I'd be like, I would get stuck and I wouldn't finish it. And then I think it was just some point, I don't even remember how I came across this process, but I think what happened for me was that I just wanted to write that thing, but I felt like if I jumped to go write that thing, I would get lost. Because again, ADHD, right? It's like once I lose track of it, and I'm like, where am I on this road? So by creating a very strict outline that says, these are the events that are supposed to happen. This is what needs to happen for this to happen, for this to happen, for this to happen. Once I have laid out all of the events that are supposed to happen, then I can do whatever I want as long as those events are happening. And if one event changes, I've already written an outline. I've saved it in a separate draft, so I can always go back to it. So even if I mess with my document, my outline is still in a separate draft. It's already written down. So if I, in the process of writing and being creative, I realize that this event point that I said needed to happen in order for this to happen, this to happen, this is creatively not working because the character would not do that at this time. I can change it in my story.
You can change it!
I can change it in my story.
You can change it!
Yes, I can change it. And I can go back to my outline and write in, hey, okay, because I changed this, this needs to happen, this needs to happen, this needs to happen. And I go back to my draft, and usually I do this, by the way, when I'm done, or like I'll make a note in my outline that this needs to change, this needs to change, this needs to change. I'll go finish my first draft. And then when I'm going back and reading my revision and I'm doing my second draft, then I take those notes that I put down saying, hey, this needs to change, this needs to change, this needs to change. I go back to the scenes in my second, by the way, I've saved as, so I have my first draft and I keep that as kosher as possible. And I'm doing all these edits in the second draft. And in that second draft, at those scene headings where I would make those changes, I go ahead and again, in red, I put this part needs to change. I'm going to strike out this part, not actually delete it, but just strike it out and put this is what needs to change. So that way, once I have made all of my notes about what needs to change in the second draft, I then save as and I actually write and I change all of that red into black.
This is amazing. You all, like, please rewatch this because this is really great advice. And I know, like, I have awesome guests. Of course, I'm only going to bring awesome guests, but this is especially amazing. Like, if this is something that you're running in trouble with, go back. And also another perk is Nandini is actually going to be talking about her writing process in a future episode.
Oh, sorry.
So she's probably going to go into more detail about this in an upcoming episode. I wanted to go back to your journey, Nandini.
Sure.
What would you say, and be as vulnerable as you like, or not as vulnerable as you'd like, but like, what would you say the biggest obstacle has been for you as a writer? What really hit you hard and made you question continuing?
Oh, God. So let's see, there are a lot of things. I think one of the big things is failure. Failure does that to me every time. Okay. No matter how big or small the failure. Especially as a screenwriter, you're putting your stuff out there, you're sending it to agents, you're sending it to contests and fellowships and all of these things. And, a lot of these things, like a lot of the fellowships, even, they don't just ask for your script. They want you to write all these essays and, put your resume in and your bio. And it's like, it's a whole nother month or two of work in order just to submit for this stupid thing. And then they reject you. And you're like, really? What am I doing? Sorry, I'm not supposed to curse. My bad. Sorry. And it's like, so yes, failure does that to me every time. It still happens. Like it happened.
What do you do?
Oh God. It's not a perfect process. I'm still working on it. I'm still trying to figure out the best way to work through it. I think like we said before on the previous podcast was making sure you're marking your wins, making sure you're checking back, you're looking back at those goalposts that you achieved, saying, hey, yes, like this thing didn't work. This contest didn't work. but I have this person that believed in me, even if it's just a friend or somebody that you had, you know, reading your script and giving you notes, and they were like, this is a really cool idea, you're really creative, you know, that kind of stuff is helpful. Definitely have people around you that are that care, that are good people, and try to find people that you know are going to give you good feedback and read your work. Not your mom or your dad, because they're, you know, you'll never trust or believe your parents or, you know, your brother or sister or your spouse or whatever, because they love you. They have to say that it's great, right? You know, don't tell the people that you love, because, you know, they'll always tell you that it's great no matter what, to make you feel good, or at least that's how your brain is going to justify it, right? I have friends that I have as writer friends, you know, and I send them my stuff and they give me feedback, and they're genuine about their feedback. They do tell me when it's this could be worked on. They don't tell me I suck, but they will give me advice. Being your own worst critic can sometimes also be helpful, because you can genuinely tell when it's good or not. There are things that I've written that I have forgotten I wrote. Like, I forgot the process of writing it. I forgot the words that I wrote, and I'll go back years later and I'll read that stuff and I'll be like, wow, that was good. That was a good line. Like, oh, you know, when you're impressed by your own shit, then yeah, you're good. You know, like, I think that's where
And that is allowed, you all. You are allowed to be impressed with your writing.
Yes. You're
Allow that to happen.
You're allowed to love what you have done. And don't feel like it's conceited, or that it's, you know, you don't have to tell anybody about it if you feel really nervous about coming off as conceited. You can just be like, I'm going to read it for myself, and in your own room, in your quiet space, just be like, that was good. Read it out to your cats and be like, yeah, right, that was good, that was good, and the cat will be like, food, you know, but still it'll be great, right?
Also enjoy the bad. We talked
Yes.
about this a little bit too, but like how awesome that you were so brave to write something terrible, right? Because like a lot of
Yeah.
people can't get past the fear of failure, and you've done
Sure.
that. So kudos, Nandini. So I
Well,
wanted to wrap this.
no.
Yeah, please.
Well,
No,
because
go.
say that, you know, fan fiction is honestly
Yeah.
my backup. So here's the thing: if whenever I'm feeling absolutely terrible and like the worst writer in the world, and that nobody will ever want to read my stuff, I go back to fan fiction and I write a chapter for for whatever project I've been working on, whatever I'm inspired to write, even if it's a short little one shot that's a short story, 3,000 words, whatever, and I post it. Because here's the thing: is that it's anonymous. Nobody knows who I am. So therefore, there's no judgment on me. You know, if it's terrible, it won't come back on me. And I know that the people who are telling me this are complete strangers and are honest about how they feel, because people are never more honest than when they're anonymous on the internet. And so I post it and I wait. And if it's really terrible, then I won't get any reviews. But that never happens. Like, I post it and there will be people who say, thanks for the update. Or, oh my God, this was so cool. This was interesting. I really love this. Can you write more? And getting that validation of anonymous people telling me that they love my writing. And yeah, it was crappy fanfic. It was whatever. I'm not going to make any money off of it. That's besides the point. The point is, I have a win. I know that I am a good writer because I have a bunch of anonymous people on the internet telling me that I'm a great writer. And I think it's that confidence. It's like, you know, yes, the barometer is very low, and, you know, who knows if it's going to be good or successful. But I think as writers, when we get in our slumps and when we feel like we are absolutely terrible and we're never going to succeed, and we're getting failure after failure, that validation that yes, someone out there thinks that we are good and we are interesting and they like our story, that's sometimes all you need. And it helps you get to the next day. It helps you get back on that Word document and keep writing and working that next step. So if you're feeling absolutely terrible, I recommend it, because what is the worst that can happen posting a story anonymously on the internet?
I love that, Nandini. Thank you so much for being so open with your knowledge and vulnerable. Like, because people oftentimes when they're successful, they I think it's just the way like interview stuff happens too. Like, it's about the success, but I think it's really important for people to talk about the things that they've struggled with as well, right? Because we all struggle.
Yeah.
Is there anything else? Like if you had to say one more sentence for the people out there, what would
Ooh,
you say?
I would say if writing is what you love, don't give up. Don't give up, because it's going to be something that is a lifelong process. You're always going to be learning. You're always going to be growing. He says I'm successful. I'm like, I don't know that I'm successful. What are you talking about? Like what? I do it because I love telling stories, and I can't imagine doing anything else. I think it would be the biggest nightmare of my existence. I don't know if I could keep going, living my life, if I couldn't keep telling stories.
Please do. Please keep telling stories, Nandini.
I just don't know that I could, because it's so part of me, telling stories. And if that's you, if you feel like I have to keep telling stories, then do it, even if it's just for yourself. Because at the end of the day, if you're happy with your writing and you're happy with your stories, that's all that matters.
Plotters, if you want awesome people like this, like in your home, like every week, make sure you subscribe, because I'm going to keep having awesome people like Nandini on the show. And make sure to like as well, so YouTube knows that you're liking the content, so that you can find us again. The way to find Nandini is on Instagram, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we'll make sure to put a link below. And if you want my exclusive tips and tricks checklist, so you never feel unmotivated to write ever again, we already got a few tips from Nandini. Click into the description box below with the light bulb, that emoji, and you will be able to get to it. That's it for now. Do you want to high five with me, Nandini? Woo!